everything that our add to cart URL needs. So some websites are going to ask for the product ID, they're going to ask for some special token, they're going to ask for the variant ID, they're going to ask for a bunch of stuff, but Jimmy Jazz is pretty simple, and all you need is the variant ID, which is right here. So you'll get a different one. So in order to find that, we're going to right click on our page and we're going to press view page source, and then we're going to search some size. So why don't we just search the variant ID, and we get these A tags, which has an ID that is item code underscore, and then each one has a different variant ID. So A is basically just a link that they've styled to make into these little buttons. And the ID of each link is what we want. We want this second part after the underscore. Let's also look at a shoe that has a sold out size. So notice how I can't click on any of these sizes because they're sold out. So if we look at the page source here, you're going to see that all of these sizes under their class have this thing that says PI unavailable, except for the one that's in stock. So we can safely assume that any A tag with this class PI unavailable means that it's out of stock, and we're going to want to ignore those entirely. So if we go back to our code, in order to actually get the source of this page that we're looking at, we need to make a request. But before we do that, we're going to create a session. And a session is basically like when I open a new browser tab in incognito mode, I've just created a new session. And what that does is it's kind of like an object that stores all of the cookies you've been given by different sites. So like the way we posted that checkout request and then confirmed it, those are two different requests, but they're linked by the fact that they're both in the same session. So let's make a function called get sizes in stock. And so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to make our session as a global variable. And the reason for that is that it's going to kind of carry across all of our different functions, and we want all of them to be accessing the same session. So we're going to say session equals sorry, one second. So session equals requests dot session. I can't spell. So that's going to create a new session object. And now in order to access that variable, we're going to type global session. So now that we have our session, we can continue to make the get request. So our endpoint is going to be just the actual product URL. So in this case, let's take this one, and we're going to say endpoint equals, and then we're going to paste our URL in. And then in order to make the actual get request, we're going to do response equals session.get endpoint. So all that does is it takes the endpoint and makes a get request and then returns us the response variable. So now that we have our response, we're going to want to parse our response text, and in order to do that, we're going to be using the BS module that we've imported. So to do this, we're going to say soup equals BS response.text html.parser in quotes. So this is just saying let's parse the text, which is the HTML part of the response, and let's use the HTML parser to do that. So in order to find all the sizes, including those that are out of stock, we're going to find all of the A elements inside this div called with a class called box wrapper. So we can do this because if you see that if you search for box wrapper, you'll kind of see that that's the only box wrapper in our source. So if we look for this first, we know that it's unique, and then in that we can find all of the A tags. If we were to just look for A, notice how there are 659 of them in the page. That's going to be difficult. And so what we want to do is we want to find the closest thing kind of right outside those tags, so that we can narrow it down to get those tags afterwards. So in order to do that, we're going to say div equals soup.find, which is the function to find an element, and then we're going to find the div. And then we want to say that class box wrapper. So what this code is saying is that it's finding a div with the class of box wrapper. So that's going to get us this element, which is everything up until here. And then after that, we're going to want to find all of the sizes. And to do that, we're just going to say div.find all A. So that's going to find all of the A tags within this box wrapper. All right, so, and then we want to find all of the sizes in stock. So to do that, we're just going to set it to an empty list, and then we're going to start looping through the all of these sizes. So to do that, we're just going to do for size in all sizes. And we can say that the size ID is simply size sub ID. So here we're going to have our size is this whole tag, and our ID is this, right? But we don't want all of this, we just want this part after the underscore. So we're going to do sizes in stock dot append size ID dot split. So this dot split is going to give us a list of two elements, and the first element is just going to say item code, and the second element is going to say whatever the variant ID is. So we're going to want the second one, and if you're counting from 0, that's going to be 1. So this is going to give us the variant ID for each one. But right now this is just appending all of the sizes, whether or not they're in stock. So what we want to do is we want to filter out the ones that have PI unavailable in their classes. So we're going to add an if statement here that says if PI unavailable not in size subclass, then do this stuff. Alright, so this is going to return the sizes in stock, and if we test that out right now and we do print get sizes in stock, if we're looking at this one, we should only end up with this one. Let's do this one just so we can end up with a few more variants afterwards. But if we test this first and we just type python jimmyjazz.py, and that didn't work. All right. One sec. All right, so if we do it with the second one, notice that we get this to print a bunch of different variants, and those are just going to be the different variants we see here. So 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 4, 5, 6, 7. and we're going to see 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that means that worked. But we had a problem with this one. So we're going to want to figure out what the problem was. Oh. Alright, so that time it worked. So I may have had the wrong link in originally, or maybe I didn't save the file or something. But now we have the only size in stock, which is 6, 7. So now we have a function that gets everything, all of the sizes that are in the cart. Or sorry, all of the sizes that are in stock. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to want to make a function that kind of takes a random size out of this group of sizes in stock and adds it to our cart. So let's go back, let's close this out. And let's look at the request again for adding to cart. So click on a size, press add to cart, and we have this request. So all it is a get request, and it's on this endpoint. So we're going to copy this, make a new function, call it add to cart, access the global variable session, and before we do anything, we're going to want to get the sizes in stock, and we're going to actually run this function that we've created. So we're going to say sizes in stock equals get sizes in stock. So we have our endpoint is this, and our response is session.get endpoint. So right now, this is going to add this variant to cart and add one of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Python's string formatting system, and we're going to replace this with %s. And then at the end, we can kind of fill something in. So all this does is it like sets a placeholder that we can then define at the end. So we're going to do, we're going to pick a random size. So size chosen equals sizes in random.choice sizes in stock. So now that we're using random, which is another module, we're going to have to import that at the top. So now we have a size chosen, and we're going to want to put it into our URL. So if we print out the endpoint, you'll see that it's going to pick some random size and place it into this. And so let's just run add to cart. And see what the endpoint is. So you can see that it picks a random size from the only size available. It's going to stick that in right here, and then it's going to make a get request on that. So one of the things you're going to want to do when you're writing these bots is you're going to want to like check if the response is valid. So earlier we looked at the response and we saw that we had this success1 thing. And we can assume that if you add something to your cart successfully, it's going to give you a success1 in the response.text. That is not working. Here we go. So basically we're just going to return a true or false thing, which is we're going to say return success1 in response.text. So if that is in there, we know that it was successful, and this is going to evaluate to true, so we're going to return true. And if there isn't success1 in the response.text, then it's going to return false, and we're going to know that there was something wrong. So if we print add to cart, it's either going to print true or false. So we see it says true. And just to verify, why don't we actually print out the response text?